What is up, Stockmob? Welcome back to another video. So over the past year, space stocks have become one of the hottest sectors in the stock market, with companies like Virgin Galactic, Astra, a rocket launch company, and Rocket Labs all looking for new funding through public markets, as retail investors are finally getting the opportunity to invest in this growing untapped sector. Even Cathie Woods of ARK Invest, one of the most innovative and futuristic funds out there, is also noticing this opportunity, and they've recently announced plans to launch ARKX, a space exploration ETF. The fund will focus on companies that are leading, enabling, or benefiting from the technologically enabled products or services that occur beyond the surface of the Earth. This ETF will allow them to be early to invest in an exponentially growing sector. Now, these space companies that are going public for expansion is great for the growing sector, but given how high risk companies are in this sector with over leveraged operations that aren't even certain to be successful, personally, I would rather invest in a company that's leading the sector as a whole, that also has a great amount of resources and positioning to be a dominant force in this industry. And one of the biggest companies of them all in the space industry that's helping lead in space exploration and is ran by none other than arguably the greatest CEO of all time, Elon Musk, is SpaceX. Now, unfortunately for retail investors, SpaceX is a private company, not allowing everyday public investors to participate. But this could very soon change, as Elon Musk is reportedly considering taking a division of SpaceX public. So what does this mean? SpaceX can be devised into two segments. First is their rocket launching business, where they send off massive payloads into orbit mainly for NASA or government clients. For a rocket, the payload can be a satellite, space probe, or spacecraft carrying humans, animals, or cargo. In this division of their business, SpaceX has achieved being the first space exploration company to design and manufacture a reusable rocket with their Falcon 9 model. Just take a look at their Falcon Heavy rocket landing back on Earth.
And that landing burn has started.
Both boosters looking to be on track towards their respective landing zones.
Landing legs have started. Star boosters landing legs have deployed.
And the Falcons have landed.
LZ1, LZ2, both side boosters have touchdown.
Before reusable spaceflight, rockets were just destroyed and abandoned in space, costing hundreds of millions of dollars. But now that there's an innovative solution for this, that will no longer be a major problem. The ultimate goal of this division is to enable aircrafts that will achieve sending people to live on other planets. And CEO Elon Musk remains highly confident that his company will land humans on Mars by 2026, saying that it's an achievable goal in about 6 years from now. If they get lucky, maybe even 4 years from now. But this division isn't likely going public anytime soon because it doesn't fit in Elon Musk's criteria of having stable cash flows just yet. Now, if we take a look at their second business division, Starlink, given that they have more near-term progressional operations, they are much more likely to go public the soonest out of all of their divisional businesses. Now, what does Starlink do? Starlink is focused on providing more efficient satellite internet access by leveraging their reusable rocket technology to send out thousands of satellites into orbit, which will in turn provide high-speed remote internet connection globally. As mentioned, these operations are already underway, as SpaceX has just recently surpassed the 1,000 satellite mark in their last Starlink launch. SpaceX has even began accepting $99 pre-orders from its Starlink satellite internet service from public consumers. So out of SpaceX's two business divisions, Elon Musk made headlines when he spoke publicly on the potential of taking Starlink public after its cash flows become more predictable.
Well, Elon Musk again making headlines this morning, this time with SpaceX, saying its broadband satellite business will go public eventually. Musk tweeting, quote, "Once we can predict cash flow reasonably well, Starlink will IPO." But warning that the business will need to pass through a, quote, "deep chasm of negative cash flow over the next year or so to actually make that financially viable." The possibility of SpaceX spinning off Starlink was first floated early last year by COO Gwen Shotwell, but Musk did shoot that down last March. SpaceX has now well over 1,000 of its small satellites in orbit. has been deploying them rapidly. We saw a launch last week, another scheduled for later this week. Beta service began rolling out last fall. It's quickly expanding to different geographies, both across North America and other parts of the world, like the UK. SpaceX disclosing in an FCC filing just recently that it already has 10,000 users.
All right, so now that we know the basics of Starlink and their IPO prospects, let's go over how exactly their operations will help us here on Earth, and a timeline on when exactly we can expect this IPO. With Starlink just recently surpassing 1,000 satellites sent into orbit, Elon Musk is planning on sending 12,000 in the next 5 years, and a total of 42,000 to space in the next few decades, which is 15 times the number of operational satellites in orbit today. All of these satellites will help in providing low latency, high-speed internet with no buffering and nearly instantaneous internet no matter where you are on Earth. These satellites that provide connection from space also solve the major problem that nearly half of the world's population still doesn't have access to the internet. This is because internet alternatives require very expensive cables to run underground in the area with connection, which is an issue for more rural areas that actually have that larger surface area in comparison to more urban areas that are more dense. But on the other hand, satellite internet, which Starlink is progressing installations, has the broadband to reach those areas and provide connection from space. And Starlink's main goal is to make internet services available to everyone, regardless of their geographic location. Now, Elon Musk has stated that he isn't trying to take over the telecommunications industry. In fact, not even the bigger players, but rather just grab a small percentage of the $1 trillion a year telecommunications industry around the world. If SpaceX and Starlink can pull this off, the company could net about $30 to $50 billion a year, and these profits can in turn be used to fund greater space exploration projects for SpaceX in which they have planned. Now, when can we expect Starlink to IPO? Since we are seeing a lot of space exploration companies rushing to hit the public markets, we'd expect the bigger players like SpaceX to be doing the same very soon. But it doesn't appear like a Starlink IPO will occur, at least in the immediate future. Like Elon Musk mentioned in his tweet, he intends on taking them public when revenue growth is smooth and cash flows are predictable. Essentially, this means that he wants to establish Starlink's operations to a point where they're receiving consistent revenues from their subscribers, with a visible sign of growth ahead as more satellites get sent out into orbit. So as of now, Starlink is still in their early stages as a satellite provider, and it isn't available everywhere just yet. But Starlink has began accepting pre-orders for their initial beta service, where the initial Starlink service will cost $99 per month plus a one-time equipment fee of $499. And after surpassing 1,000 satellites launched into orbit, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk announced in early February that the Starlink internet service has over 10,000 subscribers in the United States and abroad. So how far out are we from seeing Starlink in the stock market? Analysts have projected for Starlink to take around 3 years to achieve a positive cash flow, expecting not to see a Starlink stock until 2024. But from what we've seen in the past decades, the markets are forward-looking and tend to reward disruption and innovation. Personally, I believe that just like the many world-changing companies in the stock market, Starlink will IPO before achieving positive cash flows, rather achieving the ability to make stable projections of consistent cash flows. And by the end of this year, I expect IPO talks to ramp up for Starlink to potentially go public in 2022 or 2023. So those were my thoughts on Starlink's potential upcoming IPO and a little bit more about the company. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, check out the Discord community. It'll be the first link in the description. Until next time, keep mobbing.